So hey, we're back.
Hey,
how are you?
We are back.
I am Bill Merck.
And I am Pastor Vince McDonald.
And I'm Keeley Samson.
Keeley! This is Keeley and her journey from Kilimanjaro. No, is that a mountain in Australia? No, okay, never mind.
That's Africa.
Did you not pass geography?
Well, I know on my wrist board, it's got 4 parts. It's got the
God.
New Guinea and
This is bad.
a couple other, but it's only worth like 2. Anyhow, we'll go on. That's risk. That's playing the board.
Before I went across the seas, I didn't know where anything was in
Yeah.
relation to each other. So you're in good company.
There we go. But we're delighted to have Keeley with us Keeley is our children ministries coordinator, director. I give all sorts of titles to it. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if we landed on an official one.
Do we have an official one? Do you have an official one?
There's an official title, but
Yeah.
I think I fluctuate between all of those.
Yeah. I'll say our director of church ministries, our children's ministries coordinator.
I answer to a number of different things.
Fair enough. So tell us how you got here. How did you become a Christian? What was?
Yeah, how you got saved, how you ended up on and then how you got to Immanuel. Then we'll get into the mission field from there. Right.
Yeah. Let's go with that. Go.
Well, it all
No, I'm
started
just kidding.
in my mother's womb.
Wow. Were you
In sin, your mother conceived. Not
Yes,
converted.
unfortunately. So born into a Christian family in Buffalo and lived there for a number of years. And when I turned 10, we had moved to New Jersey. And I think for me, that was a time where I just saw a lot of things like shift with my family because we had been so involved in our church and so involved in ministry and things like that. And when we moved to New Jersey, it was kind of like a light got turned off for us. And we all just kind of started doing our own thing. And my parents were still like Christians, they were still leading us in that way. But there was just an area of my own life that I just started drifting. And so it was these thoughts of like, okay, I know the right thing to say. I know the right thing to do. And of course, I want to be a good person. But there was never that connection in my mind or in my heart that this was a personal thing. It just always felt like God was kind of that eye in the sky, and he was just waiting to like clamor down on me, give me the biggest judgment, and just prove all of the thoughts that I had about myself of, okay, I'm not doing enough, I'm not enough, I'm never going to be enough for what God wants. And I think that just really stayed true for me most of my teenage years into my young adulthood. And I remember going to college and having so many friends who didn't have a faith background, who were just kind of living out life the way that the world said to, in the sense of like, hey, let's have fancy cars, let's have, I don't know, like let's just have like a good life, like let's collect things and be happy that way. And after I graduated college, I started working at a school and I was working with preschoolers. And I remember I was still going to church on Sundays because my parents had joined Immanuel when I was maybe like 15 or 16. We'd gone to another
Do I
church.
remember you wearing like dark glass? Did you have you wore dark glasses?
Yes, they were like those thin ones.
I feel like I could picture you. Yeah, but they were all black.
Yeah, they were like thick rimmed black. But like,
in the back.
Oh, it was so bad. It was so bad.
No, it wasn't.
It was terrible.
I didn't mean that negative. I just meant I'm picturing. It's almost like she was a different person. I'm picturing. That's Keeley Samson.
Mm-hmm.
But we hadn't really interacted a lot.
No, I don't think so. I was so shy when I was a teenager too. Like anybody came up to talk to me and I just had no voice at all. I didn't want to stand there. I didn't want to talk. I went to church and I was like, let me run out as quickly as I can so I don't have to talk to anyone. In my early 20s, I was still coming to church every couple of Sundays because I knew it made my parents happy. But again, there really wasn't anything personal in my own life that was impacting me. And I'd been working as a preschool teacher, a teacher's assistant in the Morristown schools for a while. And I just kind of kept doing it. And I kept doing it. And one morning I just woke up and I was like, this can't be like what I was made for.
Yeah.
Like there's something vital missing. And I'm trying to do all of the things that people are telling me are going to make a difference. So I have a good job. I'm putting savings away. I have good friends. I'm dating someone. So like all of these things are supposed to satisfy me, but I just feel empty and dead inside. And I went home that day, and I think there was just something in my spirit that was like just shaking within me of there's something more. And the realization that I already knew what the more was. I just had never given space for God to say it's more than just a transaction.
Right.
It's a relationship.
Right.
And I was just kind of overcome with that. And I can't explain it more than it really just clicked in my brain that God was actually who he said he was. I remember I was reading in John and reading the I ams. So there's 7 I ams there. He's saying, I am the light. Right. I am the way, the truth, and the life. I am the resurrection and the life. And, there's all these things that Jesus is saying, this is what I am. And they're not impersonal, they're personal. And they challenge you to have like a friendship with him. And I just kind of sat there and I was like, okay, God, if this is true of who you are, like if this is what I see to be true, and there's no other response that I can make other than to say, will you be Lord in my life? And I want to surrender all of the control and all of my own plans and all of these other things. And I'm just going to trust you to come and do something, like just come and do something in my life. And immediately it was like I was wrapped in this hug of just peace and love and almost like a sense of like, welcome home.
Yeah, oh, that's neat. That's neat. It's funny you use that phrase because well before your time, coming out of the hippies movement, was Chuck Girard and Love Song was the group. And when they all got saved, all these guys, that was the song they wrote, Welcome Home. And that was their phrase for being born again. So that's neat you say that.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you're asking how I then ended up actually attending Immanuel on a regular basis, it was probably the week after that. I had just kind of started, just telling my parents like, hey, actually something has changed in me. And they're like, yeah, we can see that something is changed within you. And I was like, I'm surrounded by wonderful friends, but none of them believe the same thing that I believe in. And I really need to have some Christian fellowship. I need to have people who will just encourage me and maybe challenge me to develop whatever's happening within me. And so I think that night it was the Thanksgiving Eve service. And so I had gone to that. And while I was there, one of the things that I prayed for was like, okay, God, would you please surround me in Christian fellowship? And I remember right at the end of that, Christine and Lisa Merckx just stand up and they rush right over to me. And they're like, hi, we've seen you around. Like, we have this young adults group that's going on. Do you want to come? We're having a party on this day. And I was like, oh,
neat. Oh, wow.
Okay.
Wow.
And that was just, I think, God opening up doors to just really deep, quick friendships of people who have been walking with the Lord for a really long time, people who were new to walking with the Lord, and just drawing me into Christian fellowship where I could ask questions and, have things answered or have people challenge me in what my thoughts were about things.
Oh, that's really neat. And with that, where did, I'm trying to even remember when you began to think maybe God's calling me to go with, was it YWAM, right? To go, did you know Australia right away or no? It was more?
No. So 2015 is really when I started attending the church. I know my family had been going there while I was a teenager.
So Pastor Greg came on, see? He came on in February 2015, and that's what,
Look at that. Perfect timing. So it wasn't until, I want to say, December of 2016. And I remember you had preached like 1 week, and then the week after that, Pastor Greg had preached. And both times you were preaching, you had said these things of, oh, God gave us a word for this year. Or, oh, I'm just like holding this word of hope as I go into this new year. And it just, something about that resonated in me, because I was like, what does that even mean? Like, what does it mean to ask God for a word? Does he like magically write a word
No,
on
and I
the
don't
wall
mean
for you?
we don't mean it as a direct revelation. You know?
Right, exactly. It's more, you have this sense of, hey, this is what I sense God doing in my life, or this is what I see him doing
Right.
in the people's lives around me. And well, I didn't know that at the time. So I sat down and I did one of those quintessential, here I am, God. I'm not moving from this spot for the rest of the day until I hear from you. I need a word for like my future. What am I doing? And I didn't hear anything.
Yeah.
And I still didn't hear anything like the next day.
Right.
And I just kind of walked away from it a little bit disappointed, but also I think starting to realize what you guys meant by that was not a direct revelation from the Lord, but there is a sense of this is where he's leading you.
Right.
And so as I continued to just pray for the year and ask God what was going on, I actually got an email from YWAM, which was in Australia, because friends of mine had done YWAM.
Yeah.
Can I stop you? What's YWAM?
Oh, YWAM. So
Yeah, I
YWAM
have
is...
no idea.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I threw that out there.
YWAM.
It's just the the name that we call it, but it's Youth with a Mission.
Okay.
So,
Yes.
yeah, started by Lauren Cunningham, and it's just
Is it only for Australia?
I had already been familiar with it because Tom and Sandy Brown, who were such a core part of Immanuel in years past and then became missionaries, several of their kids did like, short-term missions with YWAM, Youth with a Mission. So I had already known about it, but it wasn't only Australia. No, it was.
No, it's worldwide.
Okay.
So they really, the idea is that you're doing short-term, long-term missions.
Okay.
So they do long-term where you can be committed to being a missionary for 20 years, but you're doing short trips into specific places for a certain amount of time. Or you might move to that specific place and live in just one designated place for a long time.
Gotcha.
So really, Lauren's heart when he first got YWAM started was seeing young people being equipped to be missionaries without first having to like raise all of the missionary support and get everything in line before they went. So friends of mine had done that when they were younger. At this point, I was 26 years old. 26 or 27.
Oh,
and
back then.
I'm sorry. Yeah, all the way back then. I was so old.
It's interesting. And the years go by. But yeah.
Well, the reason why I say that is most people who go to Youth with a Mission are in like youth. So they're like 18, 19, 20.
Right.
They're not 27, 28 years old.
Gotcha.
So I'd gotten an email from them, just a marketing email saying, hey, we saw that you had been interested in Youth with a Mission. We're a new base that's getting started. We'd love for you to take a look at us or anything. And it was like an epiphany up in my brain.
Yeah.
Because here I had been praying consistently for a month, asking God, like, direct my paths, teach me where I should go, be that whisper behind me, telling me to go to the left or to the right, show me what is the right way for me to go. And I wasn't ever thinking missionary. That was never in the plan or what I had scoped for my life. So then when I saw that, I prayed about it, and I just had such confirmation in my spirit. I remember I had that confirmation in my spirit. I'm praying about it. I was like, okay, God, if this is what you have for me, let me, have it affirmed by different people who are counselors in my life. And probably the next day or so, I ended up going with Lisa to the beach, which was a regular pastime that we did with one another. We'd go and we'd take our Bibles and we'd just read and talk. And it would be the end of the night by the time we got back. And we spent the whole day, and I was all nervous and jittery because I didn't know how to bring it up to her. And she was like, what is going on with you? And I was like, well, I think God's leading me to be a missionary. And she's like, awesome. When do you leave? And it just kind of took me by surprise to hear someone be so, that's just, if that's what you feel like God is leading you to do, then your only response is a yes, and to follow where he leads you. So yeah, that's why I'm kind of.
Yeah.
Okay.
I remember Deanna because Deanna obviously close in age. I mean, she was you're probably closer to Vince in age, but I think Deanna's
Janice
born
a
in
few years younger than me.
1990. Yeah. And but her talking about at the time just the wonderful impact you were making in the group, so to speak, in the your heart for the Lord.
Yeah.
And I remember her saying, "Dad, Keeley really, she really is a blessing." And so it was kind of paving the way in my own thoughts. But I'm jumping ahead.
Jumping ahead.
Not jumping ahead.
So why Australia? How did that all come about?
Did you go anywhere before Australia?
No.
So Australia was where?
Australia was it. Yeah.
I like it.
Honestly, sometimes you look back on your life and you're like, everything was before you. You could choose anything at the table, but you zoomed in on this one thing, and it was like I had little blinders on my eyes, and I didn't look either way. This was the thing that popped up before me, and nothing else even came into my thought as another option.
Now, obviously, a big part of your time was dealing with the native ones there who didn't have scripture written in their language.
Yes.
Was that from the very beginning that you were in that, or was that?
No. So I went in 2017, and that was my first trip out. And I was there for 6 months. So Youth with a Mission, or YWAM, they just have a base level training program that they ask all of their missionaries to go through. It's called a DTS, a discipleship school. So the first time I went over, I did 3 months of that, where it's really just you delving deep into the Bible.
Right.
And then making sure, because they have people from many different backgrounds, a lot of people actually have come who aren't Christians at all, but they're just curious about what this is talking about, what their purpose is, and they're there to find out more. So they really use it as an evangelism tool to teach people about Christ, help you deepen your walk with God, to feel comfortable praying out loud, to feel comfortable, if someone were to ask you to share the gospel, you feel equipped and capable of being able to articulate that well. So I did that for 3 months, and then the next 3 months, part of it was spent in the Kimberley of Australia. So if you're looking at a map of Australia, the east coast, you're going to have Sydney. All the way on the west coast, you're going to find Perth. So Perth is where I lived. And then we went up the coast north of Perth into the Kimberley region. So that pretty much starts from the town of Broome, and then it goes all the way over to Kununurra, which is on the border of the Northern Territory, where you see Darwin. So that was kind of the area that I lived in and worked in while I was there. And my first exposure to the Kimberley was working in some of the communities with the Aboriginal people who are there. And I didn't know that I was going to just fall in love with Australia, or fall in love with the lifestyle and make deep connections as quickly as I did. But the first trip that we went out there, it was like, I just felt like I was at home.
Yeah.
It was like, I should have been here my whole life.
Yeah.
Not Buffalo?
Not Buffalo. I know, shocking.
I mean, I did go to Buffalo a little bit ago and had some delicious wings.
The best wings.
Oh,
Actually.
they are the greatest.
At Eastgate?
No, up in Buffalo.
Oh, I thought you meant
No,
Buffalo
no.
Wild Wings. Okay.
Really? They're terrible wings. I'm sorry.
That's the opinions expressed about Buffalo Wild Wings are not those of the podcast.
They are. Anyway, sorry. Let's get back to you. Well, okay. Let's go on.
I enjoyed them.
Fine.
I just like buffalo wings.
Yeah.
Okay. But what's the food like there?
You know what? I thought that it was going to be really exotic, and it isn't.
Really?
It's really just like beef and potatoes. So, or
Out in the Kimberley?
yeah. So most of the Kimberley is like a cattle station. So
Okay.
they have like beef to eat,
Right.
not dairy cows.
Right.
And so that's a
So you
big
have-
portion
okay.
of their food. When you get closer to like the river, so there's the Fitzroy River that kind of runs through the Kimberley.
Right.
A lot of people will eat fish from that they'll catch. But primarily you eat beef and potatoes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the Kimberley was like the people group were like a self-contained. They weren't raising beef and selling it to, it was for their own sustenance.
So, it's kind of hard to get into the the details of that, but in essence, Aboriginal people have what we call communities. And so that is land that they own, that is part of like their people group, their native land. That being said, each community has a CEO who then makes decisions to help keep that community running.
Okay.
So a lot of them either partially own or own a cattle station that they raise up beef and the people can use that food, but then they're also selling it to help sustain the community and the people who live there.
How many people are in each community?
It can range. Some of the communities are pretty small and there's only like 30 to 50 people. Some of them have 300 or more. It really depends on where it's located.
Right.
So the more rural ones, it's really hard to get out there. You have to have a 4-wheel drive vehicle. You have to bring all of your own water, your gas, etc. with you, because some of them don't have a gas station in their town. So you're trekking it all the way from the last gas station that you were at and bringing it out with you. And if you run out, then you're walking to go and get more. So one of the staples that you see going in and out of communities are cars just abandoned on the side of the road because they've run out of something.
Wow.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing because Australia is a first world country, right? Yeah. And in all of the main cities, you have everything accessible to you. But the Aboriginal people have had quite a bit of a rough relationship with the government. And because of that, when you go into the communities, most of them are like you're stepping into a third world country, into extreme poverty. And so it's such a striking difference because you can go a couple towns over and people have all of these lush things. And then you come here and they don't have power in their home. They don't have any beds. They have a building that they can go into, but there's really nothing more to show for it.
Now, are the Aboriginal, are they one people group with one common language?
No. So Aboriginal people, I don't want to say that you classify them, but there is a desert people, there's river people, and there's like people who live closer to the shoreline. And so they're very distinct in their languages. So if you are a river person, you're going to speak Jaru or one of those languages. If you're a desert person, you speak a different language. I didn't work with many people who would be classified as a desert language. I worked with mostly people who lived near the Fitzroy River. Okay. But you'll also notice like physical features are different because they have different things that they have to face. Right. One of the things that I thought was really an incredible feature about the Aboriginal people is that they're very nomadic. And so they don't think anything of just going for a walkabout. And, you know, they might just start walking and then they camp outside. And I was asking one of my friends about that and asking her like, oh, what camping gear do you take? And she goes, well, myself. Yeah. And I was like, there's something else. Like, what are you laying on or under? And she's like, oh, like, we just lay down. Right. It just like, it blew my mind because they're not concerned about, you know, bringing all the high-end tents and the sleeping pads. And
they're okay with laying down, but aren't there like crazy animals there and stuff?
Well, I mean...
Like, isn't Australia known for having like 8-foot spiders and stuff? Like
the huntsman spiders are large, but they are non-venomous or poisonous. They're just big.
I know. I mean, even when you were talking about toilet frogs and stuff before in the past.
Well, so you have to think if you're in a dry area, it has either the wet season or the dry season. The frogs are going to congregate wherever there's water, and water is always in toilets. So
I never heard of toilet frogs. You obviously talked about that, and I never was part of that conversation.
Yeah, it was at mid-evening, the first mid-evening sheet.
Yes, now I remember.
Oh.
Yes, that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't tell you how many frogs I fished out of toilets and set them free because I had no problem using the restroom with them there, but other people had some concerns.
Let's get off of that one. Yeah. I'm just kidding.
So, but to answer your question, so then I finished doing that. I went to the Philippines for 3 months after I was in the Kimberley for the first time. And we did a lot of ministry there. We visited a lot of hospitals and just provided some like basic needs for people that we saw around there. And then when I was flying home, a woman that I had met, Jen Brownhill, she had sought me out and said, "Hey, Keeley, I've been praying and asking God to just build a team that would be interested in doing Bible translation.
Yeah.
It's an opportunity that we've been asked to take up because specifically in the Kimberley, we don't have Bible translation done in their languages. There's a English version and there is a Northern Territory Creole version, but that's a different type of language than what's spoken in the Kimberley region." And she was like, "I would just really love for you to pray about it and consider coming back."
Yeah.
And I remember telling her, "Nope, I'm not coming back. Home. I'm an emotional person." And so I was like, I'm already too emotionally connected to this place to feel like I could make a good decision without feeling influenced. So I came home and I had every intention of just going back to my job. They had thankfully saved my position for when I got home so I could go right back to work. And I came back and I just had a burden for people. I walked into my house and there's a little bit of culture shock coming home because, you know,
all the independence and you're back there.
Yeah. And then, as well, just even walking in a store, I remember being overwhelmed by the cereal aisle.
Yeah.
Because we have like almost 100 cereals.
Yeah.
And I just was like, oh my goodness, I don't remember having so many options.
Right. We take it for granted. You're right.
And so I gone home and I got into my room and I started looking around me. And I think I had 6 Bibles just in my bedroom. Not even ones that I was actively using. Some of them had dust on them. And I just started crying because I was like, God, I'm so privileged being here, having your word right at my fingertips.
Yeah.
I get to know you. I get to see you. I get to know who you are, what a gift this is. And I'm so burdened for people who don't have access to you in this way. And from that moment on, I really just started asking people to pray. I remember going and meeting with you and Pastor Greg and being like, okay, I know that I just got back, but I think I need to go back again. And for a much longer time. So that was really, God just kind of put a burden on my heart for people to have access to his word the same way that I did. Which, I mean, is an exciting thing. But also, it's a lot of hard work.
Right. Yeah.
So.
Absolutely. We are going to take a break.
Oh wow, we've
will
already
be
done.
right back. Okay, we'll be back.
Welcome to Immanuel Baptist Church, where our focus has been building strong lives in Jesus Christ since 1925, right here in Maple Shade, New Jersey. With 2 Sunday services at 9 a.m. and 11 a.m., you can choose the time that works best for you. And if you have children, our Greenhouse Kids Ministry and Nursery are available during the 11 a.m. service, so you can worship without distractions. But that's not all. On Sunday mornings at 10 a.m., we offer Sunday school classes for all ages. And if you're looking for a midweek pick-me-up, we have a variety of events on Wednesday nights. For more information on all of our programs and events, visit our website at ibclife.org. Follow us on social media and check out our weekly bulletin. And there's one more way to stay connected with us. Download our Church Center app. With this convenient app, you can stay up to date on all of our events and register for programs. Immanuel Baptist Church, building strong lives in Jesus Christ.
We're back.
We are back.
We are back.
Okay, go ahead.
That was our first little tech hiccup.
Yeah, right.
Anyhow.
Yeah.
But so Keeley, as we were talking about your journey with the Lord, and so you were back, but you were headed back to the field, and that was when.
So I headed back July of 2018.
Yeah, and that was with that because I remember you sharing it with us that so you were really basically needing to hear them talk and learn what their verbal language is.
Yes.
You had a system, I remember. Not that we're going to go through all of it, but
Yeah. So thankfully, I didn't have to learn anyone's language. I
Okay.
did pick up some things,
Yeah.
just because the more you're exposed to it, the
Yeah.
more you start using it for yourself. But the ministry that I was part of is called Every Tongue Ministry, and it is an oral Bible translation ministry.
Yeah.
So it's not taking a written form and then speaking it out, because that's just an audio rendition. An oral rendition is the translator. So if you were my translator, I would give you the scripture in a language that you can understand.
Right.
You would synthesize it in your brain, and then you would speak it out in your language, like your heart language. And so that was really the process of what we went through. So my job was actually a facilitator or trainer. So when I first went to Australia and I was part of this program, I went through a series of different trainings. One was with Faith Comes by Hearing, who came and taught us how to use their software program to be able to seamlessly do the Bible translation recordings. And then we also had 2 people come from SIL, the Summer Institute of Linguistics, which is a world-renowned Bible translation organization. They came out to teach us the different steps of translation. So pretty much you come in, you do an internalization process, which is what I said, where you're given scripture, you're thinking about it, you can ask questions. One of the biggest questions that I always had is the Sea of Galilee.
Yeah.
Like, what is that? And so then trying to show them it's not a river,
Right.
it's not a lake, like,
Right.
it's something more than that. And that's kind of what internalization is. You're talking through, you bring pictures of things so that they can visualize what you're talking about. And then from that, you start doing the process of translation.
Yeah.
So he showed us how to do that. And really, myself, Jen, we had about 4 other people who were on the team. Out of them, I was the main facilitator trainer, and Jen was also one of them. So my role was to go out to the communities and get connected with the translators, to build relationship with them. And honestly, that was the easy part.
Right. Neat.
And then pretty much I would be out in the Kimberley for about 1.5 to 2 months. And then I'd come back and be back in Perth for about a month, just taking the translation that we had done, filtering it through, and getting it then transferred into an audio file that could be submitted.
Fantastic. So when you were in Perth, you probably also were fellowshipping with an English speaking church.
Yes.
When you were out in the Kimberley, were there any Christian assemblies in the Kimberley?
So there are some. I will say that most Aboriginal people are not Christian believers.
Right.
And so not every community has a church fellowship. So some of the places that we went to, we were the church fellowship.
Right.
And so we would just each, week be the person who shared something from scripture that we talked about, and we would pray for one another. Some of the places did have churches, which was wonderful, and we got to join them for their services, which was a blessing, honestly, because you got to see how different people do church. So one of your earlier podcasts was about worship, and going to Australia, it was just an exposure to worship that I'd never seen before. And so many people are very reserved. Other people were not reserved at all, and they were dancing in the aisles. And for me, it was just an eye-opening thing to see how different people, different cultures worship.
Do you still communicate with any of the people that you met over in Australia?
So I still communicate with the team that I was part of with the mission. The people from the Kimberley, my Aboriginal family and friends, they don't have social media, so it's been quite challenging to stay connected with them. One of the things I had said earlier is they're very nomadic, and so it's hard to explain, but really the sense of the community is that one person is not just for themselves. Each person is for the whole community. So if that means that I have a cell phone and you don't have a cell phone, but you're in need of a cell phone, you'll just take mine, and I'll just wait until somebody else gives me a phone for me to get it. So that means that your phone number is always changing. You don't always have access to a phone number, to an email, or to things like that, because they also go for long times into, the bush, and they hunt, and they are just outside and accessible. So I haven't been able to stay one-on-one in contact, but through my team, they've been able to keep me updated.
Oh, that's pretty cool. How about any of the other missionaries?
Who are over there?
Did you form any kind of bond with any of the other missionaries?
Oh, yeah. Oh, my goodness. I think some of my lifelong friends were formed there, yeah. One you guys have met, which is Crystal. She comes to visit me quite often. And then my friends Ian and Drew, they've come.
Is Crystal the one that you guys go out and crawl through the caves out in the Arizona desert or something?
Yeah. She was also the one that I did that with while shipped. So she was with the translation team. And so she and I would often be doing translation work together. She had a different role than I did. She was with the back translator. So back translator pretty much listens to the work that the other people have done without listening to it at all. And they listen and say, oh, that doesn't make any sense. Or, oh, I don't really like the way that they said this. So they're kind of like that first check to make sure that you're communicating something right. So that was her job.
Yeah. Wow. And then COVID came.
Yeah.
Changed the world, but it changed Keeley's world, right? Because Australia, they even locked down more than we did, right?
Yes. Yeah. So pretty much, I didn't even know that COVID was happening, because as everything else was happening in the world, I was in the midst of a translation project. So we had driven all of our translators from the Kimberley into Perth to do a translation. And then we had flown trainers from Faith Comes by Hearing to come and help us do this project. So we had started, and the first day, our director came in and was like, COVID has hit. You guys are not allowed to gather in this room together. And we were like, what? What does that mean? And each day she would come in and say, hey, at first we thought 100 of you could meet together. They just reduced it to 50. So you have to find a bigger space. And then they're like, you're reduced to 20. And then finally they said, you can't be here at all. And so our translators, we were able to get them on flights back to Broome, and then find transportation from Broome into their communities, because their communities were actually waiting for them to return before they closed the gates. Literally gates to close and lock so that other people couldn't come in. And that's when the lockdown happened in Perth. So pretty much from day one, flights couldn't go in or out. People were locked in their homes, and we were pretty much restricted to not going anywhere unless we fit a certain criteria. So there were places where it was like, this zone can go to the stores on this day, or this zone can go and do this on this day. If you're walking down the street, you have to be 6 feet from each other. And they were passing out tickets to people who weren't doing that.
Oh, my.
So it was just like, it just hit immediately. And then for me personally, ministry stopped. I couldn't get out to the Kimberley. We weren't allowed to drive outside of the Perth limits. And a lot of my translators were really scared and afraid of what was happening.
And I think we began communicating there because you were one. I mean, obviously our church was supporting Keeley and others in the church individually. And you were communicating, hey, I don't know what's going to happen here, you know. And I had just been sensing, we talk about, as Pastor Greg talked about his own journey here in the sense of the Lord. I think Pastor Greg, while you were still over there, we talk about, he had been served here about 6 years. I'm going to say from 2015, 16, 17, 18, to 21, February 21 was like, because you were there until January 22, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So, and Greg, it was over 6 years, but he had just, some of the weight of the children's ministry was weighing on him. And if I have my timing right, we kind of, he took a sabbatical And one of the things God used was Catherine McDonald, because Catherine that summer just felt led of the Lord to say, I want to, like, I have my summer off for her teaching and stuff. I want to do an internship, unpaid voluntary internship with the church. And we talked about, well, one of the areas that we really need, could you do something with the children's ministry? You know what I mean? And because for Greg, Pastor Greg, some of the children's ministry, his ministry here, had expanded so much in many roles. Just that weekly caring for the ongoing, the maintenance, keeping the motor running, besides having any creative aspect. He was wearing thin there. Well, which was, I remember him saying, I need to get a break from it. And literally Catherine walking in and saying, I'd like to do a summer internship, and just saying, wow, God, this is amazing. And that's when, she kind of came up with the theme, for our children's ministry and the sprouts and and really kind of rejuvenated some of that. Now we have people doing like those who are running Vacation Bible School and whatnot, just fantastic, with Teresa doing all just great voluntary stuff. But that sense of the ongoing ministry. So I just really felt the Lord kind of, we were texting, and then I learned how to record on WhatsApp.
Yes.
And literally, this is going to sound funny, but I literally would send her a message, Keeley. And there's something about hearing her voice kind of just saying, I just don't know what God has in store for me, but I know he's coming home. And I said to her, I can say it now, Keeley, I'm running ahead of our board. I have no permission for this, but I feel the Lord leading. If you came home, would you be open to at least initially what we would call like a missionary in residence, and you in a part-time role be our children's ministry coordinator? And I think I brought that forward to you, and like that sense of, is this something that you would be excited about? Because I was sitting there in my mind going, man, this would be just what we need, not only for the ministry of what God's doing in her life, but for what God's doing in Pastor Greg's life. I knew that the weight of that he was carrying. And when you kind of shared your excitement about it, first off, Keeley, like I said about Greg, it's your heart. I mean, your heart, your humility, your tenderness to the Lord. When I want to say that for, that goes with, I mean, when I was looking for a secretary and office manager, it was Kathleen's heart. Besides her skills, it was Kathleen's heart that jumped out to me. But when we kind of had a sense of, yes, I see this as well. And I reached out I talked to the deacon board, and yes, they could see this happening. When I shared it with Pastor Greg, his sense was like, and he then went through a time, as we know with Pastor Greg, where he stepped out of ministry for a bit. But even his sense of excitement about coming back was because that piece of the puzzle was already put in place. Keeley was here, hit the ground running, just what I kind of referred to, not only maintaining, but visionary. So like the story hour, things like that just came out of that. And I watched, that was one of those times where I just said, wow, Lord, I just watched you do this. And I remember when Pastor Greg has talked about his sense of, wow, if this would work at Immanuel, for me, that sense of, this seems so of the Lord. And to me, it sure has been. Have you sensed, when you came back, were you like, yikes, this is an unknown area, or were you, but you sensed the Lord was in it?
Yeah, I did. I think I came home and you were so gracious with me. I remember you telling me, Keeley, I want you to have like something that you're going to do, like have a goal that you do something during the day. But other than that, just take a little bit of time to be refreshed before jumping into things. And then I started coming to church on a regular basis, and I started seeing the kids, and I jumped in, and it just, every single time I showed up, it just felt even more like God saying, look at the green grass that I've led you to. Like, look where I have led you to a place of restfulness, but also a place that you find joy, and you get to find joy and share that joy with these children. Because to me, at least, like, children, they give you a glimpse of God that nobody else does, because they view him so innocently.
Yeah, right.
And to me, at least, like, that has built my faith as I've worked with them. And it's something that I keep going back to, like, God, I didn't know what was happening during COVID. I didn't know what was going to happen if I said I wanted to come home, or where I was going to end up. But you have so perfectly laid out what it turned out to be, and I'm so grateful for it. Yeah.
I think, and now she's Miss Keeley. These kids, someday they're going to be going, remember Miss Keeley when we were little?
Hopefully with fond memories.
Well, I mean, pretty soon it won't be Miss Keeley anymore. So let's go into that.
Wait a minute, hold on. I noticed she's been talking like
that.
This.
Right. She keeps flashing the one finger. So let's talk about it. Something big just happened in your life.
It did. I got engaged.
You and Carson met online, am I correct?
We did.
Okay.
Yes, yeah. So we met online actually in 2023, the week of Vacation Bible School. So perfect time to meet someone when I had 0 time available. And we joke about it, but I message him once a day, and that was it. Didn't get anything else. But then, God knew what he was doing there. Yeah.
That's awesome. And we're glad you're here. And
absolutely. Absolutely. And the just the way the ministry, do you find yourself still having time to be creative? Like, you've created ministries, and then sometimes it's, now I really only have enough time to keep the ministries going that I've created. Do you ever, like, for me, sometimes early as a pastor, I would try and spend time creating and thinking of new things. To be honest, when Pastor Greg came, I was like, that's your job. You think of the ministry.
Yeah, I feel like I'm often creating and planning, specifically with our Wednesday night program with the Discover Kids, because we have the weekly themes, which is fun. But then this year we have gone through a series of just focus points. So our first one was about worship, and actually talking to the kids about, what is worship? Is it an act? Is it a posture of your heart? Like, what does that mean, and what does it look like? And then we came up with the idea for the kids to just start writing down lyrics for it. And so they had this
I was supposed to be putting them to song, and I haven't come through yet.
That's okay. That's okay. That's what online musician, put it all together. But they did that, and then we're currently on a focus in prayer. And so it's just been really fun to see, like, the different creative ways that you can teach kids about the power of prayer, the importance of prayer, and just different ways that they can.
And the little parts of aspects of fellowship, even just that aren't necessarily children's ministry. You're painting things. When did you start painting? Was that childhood?
I don't remember. I started painting probably in my teen years. I played around with watercolors, and I fell in love with it, so I just kept going. And it was a conversation you and I had in the office one time where you're like, you really should show people how to do things like this.
Right.
Then I was like, I could do that. I could do like a little step-by-step thing and just let people come. And it's not fine art. It's just fun art. And that's the purpose of it. We encourage one another. We laugh a lot. People make mistakes. We say they're happy mistakes, like Bob Ross, and we just turn it into something new.
Well, that's neat.
Yeah.
Most of my life is a happy mistake. On that note, thank you so much for coming. It's such a pleasure.
Yes, Keeley. We appreciate it very much.
Absolutely. So subscribe, follow, like, do all that stuff.
And if you're part of Immanuel and you want to get involved in children's ministries, and you're like, I don't know what I could do, just come up to Keeley and say, I'd like to be involved in children's ministry.
Please do.
or any ministry,
Right.
Don't just say
Come on up,
No,
Well,
come to
I've
me.
always said recruitment in ministry is the biggest thing. So we can announce 6 weeks in a row, we need somebody to help with crafts. But if somebody in that ministry goes to somebody and says, hey, would you help with craft? Time and time again, I've seen people go, yeah, I'd be glad to. I didn't know you needed somebody. And we're like, we announced it 4 weeks in a row. But announcements sometimes are just, they go out and they just...
But most people don't listen to my announcements, so no, just kidding.
Well, we got a lot of negative comments about them.
You really?
I'm just kidding.
Can it be a whole podcast? I don't want that to be a podcast.
I think we should close off.
Should
our
we
podcast.
close on off, Leah?